Good morning and welcome to the 50-minute Chassidus. It's only 50 minutes in quantity, but hopefully it will be a qualitative difference for your whole day. There was a request to review the mimer before we start the next one. This mimer is Vata Tetzav Tov Shemem Aleph, and the pasuk starts Vata Tetzav is B'nai Yisrael, V'yiku Alecho Shem and Zayzoch, Kosos Lamer, La'alis Netomid. The taich, in the pneumius taich, Vata Tetzava, means a Moshe Rabbeinu connects the Yidden to Hashem. We'll see later in the Maim, it also means an Yidden Avos Yisrael, connecting the Yidden with each other. And then there's, through this, that Moshe being the Rosh and the Yidden being the Regel, that there's a relationship that the same way as the Rosh guides the feet bring the head where it wants to go. So the head gains from the avodah of the feet. So too, that when Moshe brings out the connection of the Yid to Hashem, that means his etzem neshama, then the Yid is able to do an avodah also that adds to that. So it's not just that Moshe Rabbeinu gains the darga in nefesh of the person that is triggered and brought out by Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, his etzem neshama, there's a avodah that Yidden can do that help expand that even more. And that in general terms it is, the kosis lamar means the times of golus, where Yidden are kosis crushed, subrachim, downhearted. There's an inyan of golus. We'll see in the Maimah, what's the inyan of golus? There's two stages. One is under decrees that are anti-Semitic, and then there's a time living in golus when it's not under a decree, where one's able to serve Hashem completely, without any problems. Only it's golus. So Mashiach hasn't come. Mashiach meaning Hashem is not revealed in the whole world, and there's godliness is hidden still. Not only was it Moshe Rabbeinu who did this, that there's with his generation, but the Special of the Moshe B'chol Der, the Zohar says. In every generation you have a Moshe Rabbeinu. For example, Mordechai at Tzaddik was able to inspire the Yidden to serve Hashem the whole year under the threat of the Gzeira. And the Torah tells us that Purim that was the conclusion. Ki memashi kiblu kfar. The Yidden at time of Purim established what they began earlier. When was the relationship with Hashem started? By Matan Torah, when Yidden said Na'aseh v'nishma, and they were on an extremely uplifted level. Time of Purim, where they didn't feel this closest to Hashem. Hashem didn't appear close to them. They didn't feel their closest. They were still able to stay attached to Hashem. How so? Because of the Mesirus Nefesh that Mordechai Tzaddik will help them bring out. Where's Mesirus Nefesh come from? It comes from the essence of the Neshama. The essence of Neshama means, I'm a Yid, that's my life. There is no other life without Hashem. Now, a Yid has a couple of sources of the Emunas Hashem, of the believing in Hashem. That's natural for a Yid to believe Hashem. Where does it come from? One level is the Neshama above, the spiritual level. The Neshama in Shemaim sees godliness, sees Elokus. Another level, which is more integrated and more part of the Yid, is the Etzem his Neshama. The Neshama as it is in the Guf. Not only is it in the Guf like this, but all parts of the Neshama, the very essence is the Etzem, the godliness that shines within. Not that it perceives godliness outside of itself, so to speak, but rather the very essence of what is a neshama, what is this bundle of life that's a Jewish life, what is that? That's the etzem of the neshama. And so the avodah of the tzaddik, of the Rebbe, of the Nasi Hadoy, especially the Moshe in every generation, is to help the Yidden bring this out. So the times in two general times when this applies, by Purim under the Gzeira, before the Nes of Purim, and after the Yidden had expansiveness in their lives. Similar when the Friedrich Rebbe said his Maamarim, 1927, under communist rule, And then now in America, you have the freedom to serve Hashem with no limitation. These are the two different levels. The theme of a Yid wanting to connect to Hashem is even in time of Golus. There's no external pressure. However, it bothers a Yid that godliness is not revealed. As the Alter Rebbe used to say, I don't want anything. I don't want your Gan Eden, the Tachton, I don't want your Gaden, the Elyon, the Shem. I only want you. That if there's a Yid in the world, that it shines by him, even the godliness that there is in the times of the base of Mikdash. He feels that close to Hashem, but there's one place in the world where Hashem is not revealed. It shows that his connection to Hashem is not complete. And so we find also that throughout difficult times, Yidden have been able to service Hashem with Mesiras Nefesh. There's been an attachment that in the face of all difficulty, a Yid will stay attached to Hashem. However, when they leave that situation and they come to a place where they're able to serve Hashem with freedom, it's not noticeable as much that Mesiras Nefesh. See, Hashem has structured everything with a format. And so you have a neshama that's attached to Hashem as part of Chelek Elikam Mamish. That's what neshama is. That's the very essence of life. And then you have the structure of how a person works. Is Seichel and Midas. We have feelings, an attitude, and outlook. That's the real personality. And so sometimes you'll have to have what's called a spiritual adrenaline rush. That's the Mesiras Nefesh shining through under extreme circumstances. In the times of the Gzeira of Haman, Yidden had it a whole year. In the times of the communist persecution, Yidden had it for a long time. And they lived on this attachment to Hashem all the time. Now, but in order for it to be in sync with the personality, so now in time of Golus, we serve Hashem too. However, we could be satisfied with our own avodas Hashem, learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, keeping all the mitzvahs that we do. And Golus is there, yes, and we know there should be, Mashiach needs to come, and we ask every day for Mashiach to come, at least 3 times a day, but it doesn't bother us. We're okay, it doesn't bother us. How can it get to bother us? That's the Kosis Lamoyer, that the etzem of the neshama permeates also the personality of a Yid. How can you get to that level? This is one of the wondrous things in the Chiddush that the Rebbe says in this Maamarim. It's not because your etzem of the neshama is shining through as an etzem, because then you have the Mesiras Nefesh. It goes even to a deeper level. Within the whole Seder Ishtalshlus of Ilmus, when Hashem created any type of energy that comes down to ultimately create our world, there's level 2 general themes of revelation and hiddenness. However, within Hashem himself, there's no separation. There's no 2. It's all one. Neshama comes from that level. It says, "B'min nimlach b'mishn l'seiv shel tzadikim." When Hashem took counsel for creation, all levels of creation, it was neshamas. Neshamas are all attached to Hashem, within Hashem, before any aspect of revelation at all. And on that level, the Mesiras Nefesh of the Yid, the etzem of the Yid, and the structure of the Kochos Pnimim, the revelational level of the Neshama, the level of Gilui, of Yiseichel and Midas, are all united as one. So when that level becomes revealed, a Yid's able to, then it bothers him that Hashem hasn't shown up in the world. The whole intention of why Hashem created the world is to make a deal. Hashem should be in this place revealed. Now, and until that happens, Hashem's intention hasn't been fulfilled. How much should it bother me? It should bother me because I'm created only to serve Hashem, says the Gemara. And so when the very essence of the neshama, as it's attached to the essence of Hashem, is revealed, then I'm bothered the Mashiach hasn't come. That switch, that piece, that it bothers the Yid, that Mashiach hasn't come, that he can bring together the etzem of the neshama together with his personality. That's the Yid's avodah. Moshe Rabbeinu, the extension of Moshe in every generation, can bring out the essence. However, the etzem, the Mesiras Nefesh level, but to bring it in sync with that bothers the Yid, that's the avodah of the Yid. So too you have in Avos Yisrael. Avos Yisrael, that you can love another Yid because he's special, he's got a neshama, but this, that the goof of the Yid, it hasn't permeated my outlook towards another Yid how in the physical aspect. Within the etzem of Hashem, there's no difference. The atzmas ein so baruch hu. The etzem of Hashem, there's no difference in neshama and guf. And so therefore, if I'm able to connect my approach, my seichel and midas, the gili of neshama, have my personality to the etzem, I'll look at another Yid in this way as well. That there's not only because of his neshama, but because of the very essence of Hashem. So this we have because the Nefesh Elikis is a chelik elikam mamash. Now, we've said in the Maamarim that the Moshe Rabbeinu brings out the etzem, and there's this other piece, Viku Alecha Shemen Zayasach, that's the void of the Yid. Moshe Rabbeinu also gives the koach that we should be able to do that. He helps, number one, bring out the etzem and the neshama, because he's standing higher than all the problems and has connected to the Shem in that open way. That's the Rosh. And so he helps bring out the Mesiras Nefesh level, the etzem of the Yid. He also gives the koach that you're also able to work with it yourself. So it's not that a Yid's on his own, and that's the simple touch of the pasuk. V'yata tetzav is b'nei Yisrael v'yikol lechu shem zayazach, that Moshe commands the Yid to bring the oil. What's to bring the oil? You should have the koach to work with himself. When? Kosos Maamarim, in the time of Golus. In the time of Golus, where a Yid is bothered, by that we're just in Golus. There is an external pressure to be in Golus. And this we see that Moshe Rabbeinu did it. In his generation, he did it, that they brought out the Yetzim, the Yidden were Derdeya, not the Mesiras Nefesh. Mordechai Tzaddik brought out the Mesiras Nefesh. So the Friedrich Rebbe helped bring out the Mesiras Nefesh of the Yid. And through this etzem that's being brought out of the Yid, that you have Vata Tetzava, Moshe brings out the connection of the Yidden to the Eibishter in a way of the etzem and neshama, the Mesiras Nefesh piece. And then the Yid, V'yiku Alecha Shem and Zayasach, the Yidden works with it to make it permeate all of who he is, his personality, the level of Gil in the Neshama, even in the time of, and that koyach is also given by the Special Shabbos of Moshe, so that even in the time of Golus, Kosos Lamar, where a Yid needs to have this attachment to Hashem, it's Golus. A Yid is broken-hearted, Kosos, that there's not Gili Mashiach in the whole world, and this then affects that. In Lalas Net Tomid, there's no change in the void of a Yid, that no matter where he is or what time and situation he's in, he's constantly serving Hashem, and through this avodah of the Yid being so attached to Hashem in this way, this will be zeicha to the coming of Mashiach, when we'll have the Beis Hamikdash as a constant. So this really concludes the Maamar. I hope you enjoyed it, and that there's so much more to talk about in this theme. The focus was to learn the Maamar, and so that's what we did. To go on a different level, on a deeper level, would be to have a Farbrengen, to have a different type of setting, not just learning it. Maybe that would be possible. Anyone who'd like to sponsor a shiur or dedicate it for a good occasion, you can do so by looking up online at RabbiRabin.com. Thank you for joining, and have a great day.